Elvie Mussika. That's a tin she has in her hand, given to her by the United States federal government. It is filled with cannabis. She is one of only 4 recipients of the federal medical marijuana program for her glaucoma. She's applied to the Compassionate Investigative New Drug Program enacted by the FDA in 1976. I'll let you guys read that. And this is all about Elvie. She has had cataracts since she was born. I'd like to introduce to you the one and only Elvie Mussika. Good day. How's everybody feeling today? Beautiful. I want to thank you, Dr. Brazil. You're so wonderful for having this conference and for all your incredible work. And that goes for everyone that I see here. Every one of you has been working on these issues. Mostly we have been educating people. That's been our main goal. As soon as we became aware that the problems had gone beyond everyone's control after the Substance Control Act, 1970s. That's the legacy of a president who left his job in disgrace for lack of honesty and left us a nice inheritance called the prison industry. Has criminalized 25 million of us, and we still don't understand how we cannot afford this prohibition at any level. Okay. My name is Elvie Mussika, as we said before, and in 1975 I was given a ticket on a wild roller coaster ride. Started at the bottom of the hill. The doctor looked at me and said, if you don't start smoking marijuana, you are going to go blind. I questioned his sanity. What kind of a doctor would ask me to go on drugs? And of course, doctors are gods. They don't make mistakes. I'm sorry, you're messed up there. I went home and asked my mother to give me a strong Manhattan. I had to think about going on this horrible program. No, I smoked an extra pack of nicotine that day. Out of fear of going on drugs, my drug education was so intense. But necessity is the mother of bravery, invention, and whatever else happens on this planet. And when I realized that the doctor was really saying, you're going to go blind if you don't do this, I had to take it, even though I really didn't like the idea of trading eyesight for brain cells. But there was one good thing about it. It was going to get me happy, and I was going to forget it all anyway. So, so I told my family, immediately I took an attitude that I had to be the clown, because I knew I would be laughed at, ridiculed, and everything else anyway. So the thing is, you all have to understand now that the doctor has said stress is the most detrimental thing to my glaucoma. So if you don't mind, I'm going to have to stay happy all the time. Turns out people really had a problem with that one. I went to my hometown newspaper, imagine that, 1976. By this time I'm working at a bank. Oh, by the way, I have 2 kids I'm on my own raising. I'm working at a bank. And when I get that job, I have to go take the polygraph test, and I know they're going to ask me about drugs, and now I'm on this marijuana, the worst of them, not telling what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, it does lead to other drugs, doesn't it? Yeah. So I had to tell them this, I said, I might find marijuana because from my glaucoma, it is the only thing that is working. Not a problem, I got the job. Now, I went to the newspapers about a year after I'd been working at the bank, and I said, look, I really need to address this, because if I don't have marijuana, I am going to go blind. I cannot afford it, so I don't know where to find it. And I really, really need to not be breaking laws, because I have 2 teenage kids, and I don't want to lose them. I don't want to lose custody of them. Do you realize when people have serious illnesses, and then you add on all this burdens, so all this ignorance to it, we cannot make rational decisions based on that. Little did I know in 75 when I was old, began to find out, is that in 1913, before my parents were even born. Yeah, that's what happened. Somebody pulled it all down and made it, started the propaganda about a new plant on the planet called marijuana that made people crazy. And you heard all the tales. You watched Reefer Madness. This is a nice comedy show, but to my parents it probably wasn't funny because they thought it was true. So now I have to learn about this plant. You were talking about dosages and different things you use. Well, somebody brought me a bud. They'd come back from Venezuela and they knew I needed marijuana. I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't know how to roll, I didn't know how to clean, I didn't know how to bake, I didn't know nothing. One doctor had told me that he didn't think I was suitable to smoke marijuana child of the 50s, not the 60s, right? Yeah, right. So, that's true. So they put me on brownies. Now I see people freaking out. Oh my God, there's 600 milligrams in that brownie. What are you trying to do to the children? Well, first of all, I don't know anybody that's going around passing it to the children. I didn't do that. I don't think any of the patients dare to do that. Anyway, now for me to be satisfied if I state the few rules, if I really was going to keep those brownies like the doctor said to eat them every 12 hours, I think it works out better every 8 hours, really. And I didn't do the full gram that he prescribed. I did half a gram from the beginning. That's 500 milligrams. I went to work for 4 months and even got a raise. But I got to tell you the truth, that first one I got from Venezuela, I didn't know what to do with it, so I stuck it in the middle of an apple and I baked it. And the kids were gone for the weekend with their father, and I thought, oh, my Macintosh equipment is going to be wonderful. Because I had discovered that music sounded 10 times better, more distinct. Just separation was better. Marijuana had an influence on that. And music was my first love in life at that time, other than the kids, of course. So I ate my apple and waited for the music to get better, and it never did that night. And I went to sleep, and the next day I woke up 30 feet further from my bathroom than where it was, and I went to sleep. And the room was spinning around, and so was I. And I had to go to work, and that was a very scary thought, because I was going to get fired either way. I was out stoned, and I knew there was a big sign on my forehead that read marijuana. I knew that. And so I had to go to work like that, and it was very scary, and I don't know how I lived through the longest day I ever had. But I know one thing, I never tell anyone to just go take a brownie or a cookie or anything unless they are with someone that has been there or has an idea of what they're doing, and they can relax and wait to see how it affects them individually. It's always going to be different the first time because there are parts of your brain that you haven't used before, which are going to open up, but Dr. Melanie will get you straight on that one. All these other beautiful books will do that. So, yeah, it's an amazing thing, and I learned things from the very beginning. When that article was published, of course, my name couldn't be on it and my face either, but I was amazed how many people recognized the story. And most important of all, it was the beginning of my finding out that people who smoked marijuana were not necessarily derelicts, bums on the street. There were bank presidents and vice presidents and other people in my community that I loved and respected who brought me marijuana illegally because they did not want to see me go blind. But the legislators never did anything about it. And I understand now that even the head of the glaucoma department of the Vascular Pulmonary Institute, where I have been going now for 49 years, that they didn't really want to deal with this marijuana issue, and they really coerced me and pushed me into having my first glaucoma surgery back in '76, and that was because they said if I didn't, I was going to go blind from the glaucoma right away, but they could only offer me a 30% chance that anything good was going to happen, and I thought it was very stupid to go for a surgery that offered that little chance with everything could go wrong. But I had to listen to them because they were the authorities, and I really wish I had it because it didn't take us long to figure out that none of their surgeries worked for me. Their drops, their pills, nothing they had in their pharmacopoeia did any good. And over a period of 10 years, I learned what happens to patients who can't even get a decent job because there's a crazy woman out there with a powdered nose telling me to just say no. So I don't dare apply for a free room and board at where. So I stay home and kind of go hungry a little or whatever, waiting for the kids to grow up so I can come out and learn more and talk more and be more, but it wasn't happening then. I found out what poverty is like when you don't work anymore. I found out how people looked at you and how they turned you. Actually, I was kind of lucky. I didn't see that where that could be scattered. There are advantages to everything. You're somewhere. But by 1987, my right eye, my better eye, was completely gone after the last laser surgery, which totally destroyed it. I had hemorrhage, and that was the end of the eye. I couldn't even tell you if there was a light in the room. You can see that with your eyes closed. I couldn't. It was very, very horrible. And about 4 months after that, I get arrested because I'm trying to keep my left eye still going. That left eye had been operated in 1953 back in New York by Dr. Gardner in Manhattan Eye Hospital. And it had been a total flop, a total disaster. And that surgery left me without that eye for about 4 decades. But as I was using the marijuana, it was bringing it back. Well, this one was going. It was an amazing journey. I also had an accident where I broke a foot, and I have a pin and wires and all kinds of things. And they said I would never walk normally. I found out that I would outwalk most normal people. They were right. I found out that antidepressant from the very beginning was marijuana because when I was losing sight, it was very depressing. Just to think that that was going to be the rest of my life. But when those people brought me that marijuana, I decided, gee, my name's Elvie Mussika. Maybe I should write some music, start thinking of entertaining and doing something with that. And, my whole mood was totally different. I discovered parts of me I didn't even know existed, and there were good people to know in here. But now it was time to face the music and dance or cry, sing the blues. I don't know. We did it all. We went straight to the press when I got arrested. I didn't know where else to go. I didn't have money for an attorney. So I went straight to the press, who had been behind my efforts in '76, remember, and had written in '84 trying to keep me from losing the last of the sight that I did lose in '87. So I did have the support of the public from the beginning, but no help. My doctor, Paul Plumberg, at the Eye Institute in Florida, the most amazing doctor I've ever met, and I met so many wonderful, amazing doctors in this movement especially. But he actually is an elder in the Pagan church, and he is the authority on glaucoma, and he tried to get marijuana for me back in 1980. Wrote Dr. Green in Georgia, who told him that there were no longer any federal programs. Another lie. We can't seem to do anything without lying when we start talking about marijuana. It's a requirement. But at the trial, there was never any fear. I felt the entire community was totally behind me. I felt the love and prayers that had been coming my way on a daily basis from the day I became public. And all of you, whether I had met you yet or not, we're working towards the same goal we're all still working on now. And the intimidation of working in this movement back in the early days was enormous. I think most of you know it even more than I do because you had careers at stake. Well, I had all the precious things I cared about at stake all the time, and my side, of course, went bye-bye. Crazy thing. But the thing is that we did find out why it was illegal in the first place. What Francis L. Young, the ex-head of DEA, their advisor, the chief judge, told them to do the same thing the Nixon Commission had told them, to make it legal because it was unreasonable, arbitrary, and capricious to make patients suffer from a substance that had never killed anyone. So you have reviewed 10,000 years of history and had found no credible answer. He thought it should be legal right away. And of course he died a few years later. Oddly enough, he died of cancer, never achieving the legal status that he needed to help himself with. What a sad story there. But at the same time, all of us did find out a book came out just about then that really revolutionized the young people throughout the country. I found myself in tours with one Jack there and other young people with them. But Emperor wears no clothes. And the book went through the history, and that's why I found out about 1937. And of course now I realize we go back to 1913, California, the first laws against it here in this country. But lies and misinformation make it impossible for us to make rational decisions, and still, hundreds of thousands of you have worked so earnestly, so hard, that you now do have 24 states defying the statement that says that there is no boundary. I've shown them what I do when I show this here. Marijuana is medicine. Before any of us could join this program that I know at one time had at least 36 of us, had approved 36 of us and 18 of us were getting it. When I received it, there was only 2 men getting it. And then Elvie Mussika, and then me, and then, Elvie Mussika and I, Robert Randall was the first man, he had glaucoma. And he educated the doctors and the attorneys to do at least 60 hours of paperwork. Here's something you should always remember about this particular federal program. Every person that's been in it had to prove to FDA, DEA, and NIDA that cannabis is the most efficient, the most reliable, and the safest part of our treatment. Please understand and pass that information. Pass the information that in the states where we there took the lead. You know, in the United States back in the 90s, there were 100,000 people dying from legal drugs and prescriptions. I understand that figure has dropped to about 35,000 now. That's pretty drastic, but they had communicated to us that in the states where it's legal, since just this last 15, 20 years, this particular drug overdoses and killing, dying has gone down by at least 25%, in others a little higher than that. That is something to brag about. Don't stop now. This is the time that we got to keep moving. And I thank you, and I want the infinite spirit of love to always be your guiding light. It's what brought us together. It's why I am so thankful to be part of this beautiful family. I love every one of you.
You are my spiritual family. Thanks to marijuana and that endocannabinoid system, you know, I've gotten the messages clear.